Greetings, welcome to Productive DeFi. So in this lesson, I'm going to be going over gas and gas fees. And I'm also going to show you how you can save a little bit on gas fees in the Ethereum network. So this video, like most of the other videos that I'll be recording and the ones that I've recorded prior, it's going to be very practical. So, as we discover things for the first time or come across them, I'll explain them. And in this case, Etherscan is something that I'll explain briefly since I'm going to be using it as a tool to help explain gas and gas fees. So Etherscan is basically just the Ethereum blockchain explorer. You can see that's what it says right here. So it allows us to explore everything on the blockchain from transactions, you can see latest transactions, to the blocks that have been settled on the blockchain. It's a ton of information because, quite frankly, there are, a lot of data on the blockchain. So it's quite comprehensive. It's not something you can just kind of scroll through in an afternoon over a cup of coffee. It would probably take you a couple years, if maybe, many more. There's a ton of information here, but when you need to investigate something in particular, all that information is at your disposal because blockchain is just an open ledger. So all the information is publicly available. So that way it can be transparent and it can be honest. But Etherscan, that's what it does. It allows you to see everything and see all the transparency throughout the blockchain. The reason I mention it is because it's a popular thing that you'll come across during your time in DeFi and using cryptocurrency. And also all of the other networks. So this is the Ethereum's blockchain explorer, but all of the other networks, which we're going to get to in future lessons, have their own version of an Etherscan-like site and basically a blockchain explorer. And it will be called, under something scan, whatever the name of their network is, and it'll be under a different website. So the concept is basically similar for other networks as you experience it. They'll have a similar version of it because Etherscan is pertinent basically just to the Ethereum network. So the reason we came here, though, is because we want to talk about gas and gas fees. So I'm just going to use one of the tools on Etherscan to scan through the network and find out what the gas fees are. They have this tool here under the More section called Gas Tracker, and that's going to allow me to pull up the gas price. So the current gas price for the average gas price is 22 Gwei. Now, this is a term that can be quite confusing. It's like, what does that even mean, right? Well, I'm going to try to make it really simple, and you can see that the price just went up a little bit. So this is basically, you can think of it like the price of $1 per gallon at your local gas store. So let's say you go down to buy gas and it's $3 per gallon. That's basically what this is like. So it's just a different terminology. So don't worry about the terminology too much. I'm going to simplify this. It doesn't need to be too complex. Now you can see here in real time, we are seeing the price of the Gwei go up, it means that the price of the gas is going up in real time. So why is that? Why does the gas price fluctuate? Sometimes it gets more expensive and sometimes it gets cheaper. Well, it's because the blockchain is always being used, and it's just a matter of how much it's being used. So if there's a high number of people trying to do a transaction at the same time on Ethereum, then there's going to be a much higher gas price. Whereas everybody logs off for the day and goes home, then the gas price is going to drop. It'll be cheaper. Now, gas, the reason gas is important is it's how we're basically paying the miners, and we're paying the people that are helping run the blockchain and keep it moving. So as you can see, blocks are being settled. And on the Ethereum network, the blocks can be settled anywhere between like 12 and 15 seconds. So it's very, very fast. So these blocks are being settled. And the people that are helping reach the settlement of these blocks, they're basically running computers to do that work in exchange to collect the gas fees and earn a profit. So we pay gas to the people who are nice enough to be running machines and doing the computations. So going back to our gas tracker, so that's exactly what it does. It's basically the fee that we're going to pay in order to do any transaction on the network. You can see that there's a low, average, and high price. Now you can see that the high price is 28 Gwei. So the reason that there's different prices is it's all about how much do you want to ensure that your transaction gets into the next block that gets settled on the blockchain. So if we want to ensure that the next block gets settled and our transaction goes through, we could pay a higher price, which means the miners are more than happy to take more money what they'll do is they'll say, oh, this person's offering more money. Let's put that onto my block that I'm trying to solve. And then you have a much higher odds of getting your transaction through. Whereas if you're not too concerned about making your transaction right this minute, you might want to try to save a little bit in fees. So to help this make more sense, let's just go ahead and jump into an example. So I'm going to open up my wallet here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you What you can do, so again, just kind of showing you cool things you can do since we're here and it's relevant. I'm going to go to the accounts at the top and I'm just going to add another account. So that's the nice thing about your wallet is you can just have multiple accounts. So this will be, I'll just very simply call it, account 2, and then, we'll create account 2. So now we have account 2 that has nothing in it, and we have account 1 that has our funds in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to send some Ether from one of my addresses to another address. So here you can see my address ends in 152B9. If I go to my second address, actually this is easier. You can see them side by side. So the first address ends in B9 and the second address ends in AE. They're different wallet addresses, so they're completely separate. So it's like having two wallets now. I have two accounts. I have one MetaMask wallet, but I have two accounts in it. So it's like having two separate wallets in some ways. So that's the nice thing about MetaMask. It's very nice that I can just, in a few seconds, I was able to create a second account. How cool is that? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a transaction of Ether between these accounts to show you how gas fees work when transacting between two wallets. And so basically what I'm showing you right now is if you had a friend or you wanted to send funds to another one of your own wallets, or you wanted to send it to like a friend or a family, or you wanted to try to do a transaction with a business with cryptocurrency, this is what you're seeing here. You would just send your money from one of your wallets to your friend's wallet, and that's exactly what you do. So I just hit send, and in this case, I'm going to be sending the funds to myself. Now, sending it to myself is easy because it's aware of my account, so I can actually just click on my account. But now, if you wanted to send it to somebody like one of your friends that's not stored in your wallet, for example, all you would do is you would just paste their wallet address here. So basically, the way that would work is if I come into my account 1 here and I copy my address, then what I would do is when I hit send is I would just go ahead and I would just paste that address in here. So that's how you would send it to somebody else. You would get their full account address and then you would just paste it in there. So I'm just going to click here because my MetaMask knows about the other account. But again, if you were sending this to one of your friend would share their wallet address, their public wallet address, and you would literally just paste their address into here and then it would find it. But again, this could be like a friend or a business or a family member or another one of your accounts that you'll most likely have at some point. The longer you're in crypto, the more likelihood that you have many, many accounts. And so yeah, I'm just going to send to this second address, and I'll just send something like, so the nice thing here too, by the way, is I can do this little switch function, so I can deal with US dollar if that's easier. So if I wanted to send like $20, I can send $20. And then you'll see that the gas estimated gas here is listed, and it tells us what our estimated fee is. I'll just hit next though, and we can take a closer look at that. So it says our estimated gas fee is going to be $1.06. So you can see it's very similar to what we have going on down here with prices. So I just wanted to point out now, because I think this is an important distinction between what we were doing before, and this will help you understand gas better and why it's measured in gwei, right? Because this can, what does that even mean, right? What does gwei mean? And I'm not going to get too technical. I'm going to keep it high level because you don't need to know all the details of gas. We're going to simplify gas. It doesn't need to be that complex, and it really isn't. So it's going to cost us $1.16 to send this transaction. So it shows us the amount that we're sending plus the gas, the total here. And that's what we need to know before we confirm our transaction. But I want to just point out, well, why is gas like $1.17 here, but before it was like $20? So if you remember when we were doing the lend and borrow in example, that protocol, if we wanted to supply something, we were seeing our gas price be estimated at being like $15. So how come we have to pay $15 to do this transaction? But when we want to send between our wallets, the fees that it's offering us here is just like $1. So that's an important thing to learn about the way that blockchain works and how Ethereum works. So on blockchains, a lot of times what they do in the way that the Ethereum network works is basically, it depends on what action you're taking, because there are things you can do on the blockchain that are much more computationally intensive. So it's basically, think of it like your computer, because the blockchain is just a computer. So if you need your computer to run some heavy video gaming software, right? It's much more computationally intensive to run a game, like a video game that has good graphics. But if you're going to just do something like run Word doc, it doesn't require that much CPU power to use. So when you're transacting between wallet addresses, it's a lot cheaper because it doesn't cost that much it doesn't cost that much computational power to send funds from one wallet to another. But when we deal with these blockchain protocols here, like these DeFi protocols, where we're doing, it's more computationally intensive to interact with this smart contract that's involved with handling this decentralized finance application. It requires more operations. It requires more CPU power on the blockchain. So it is a more expensive operation. So the fees are higher. And that's why we deal with Guays, because that's kind of like your gallons, like your price of, price per gallon. So you go to the gas station, it's $3 a gallon, right? And but it depends on how far are you going to drive. Are you going to drive across state? Well, that's going to cost you more gallons to do that, right? Or are you just going to drive down the street? It's going to cost you less than a gallon. So depending on, how far you're trying to drive the blockchain is basically going to result in how high your fees are. So that's exactly what we have going on here. So in terms of like, what does GUI mean? And like, you can do all the research into that and get into the technicals. But I'm not going to do that. It's basically just, you don't have to overcomplicate it. If the number is higher, then generally gas is more expensive on the network. If it's lower, then it's generally cheaper. And then the next part of what I'm going to discuss is basically going to be all you really need to know when it comes to using gas. And what that is let's send this transaction between the wallet, and I'll show you. All right, so I just want to start this again. Make sure you can see this because I kind of started to send a transaction and I stopped. So let me start from the beginning again so you're not confused, because I don't want to just like continue my discussion mid click. So starting again, to send between the other address that we created, I just hit send in my MetaMask account. I choose account 2 to send it to. In this case, I'm going to switch it over and send like $10 US, and I'm going to hit next. Now, after you hit next in MetaMask, that's where you have a lot of power at your disposal that is kind of maybe not apparent. If you wanted to try to save a little bit on fees, because it's $1 now, but if the network becomes really crazy in the future, or like usually there's like a couple days out of the year where there's some big event in crypto and the fees get wild. So if that's the case, and it's the fees are much higher here, what you can do is you can go to the market, and it will show you that just like here you have the low, average, and high price, you can pick those in the MetaMask wallet, and you can try to save a little bit on fees. So if you wanted to pay less in fees, you could choose low, and if you wanted to pay more in fees, you could pay aggressive. Now, why would you choose the difference? Again, if you pay a higher amount, then there's a higher likelihood that your transaction is going to make it into the next settled block on the blockchain, which just means that your transaction will be settled sooner. So that's why it says like time to settle your transaction, 30 seconds versus 15. So it depends on how quickly you want your transaction to go through and get confirmed. So you may want to be more aggressive, but if you're not in a rush, you may want to go slower, and you can do that. Now, another thing you can do in here is you can choose advanced, and you can start plugging in how much GUI you want to pay, like as a max base fee. These are too technical. I don't think it's necessary to get into this. I almost always just use the low, market, or average settings, and I think that's all you really need to know when it comes to using gas fees. So yeah, that's basically it. So and if you want to learn more about gas, then this MetaMask link will take you down the rabbit hole of really getting into the nitty gritty. But that's all you really need to know, like in order to be successful with using blockchain. It's not too complex. I'm just going to go ahead and hit confirm. So I'll be sending over that $10 of ETH, as well as that I have to pay that fee to the miners to help that transaction go through. Now, nice thing here, see how it says pending? So very cool thing about MetaMask. And now notice here the cancel button and speed up button before they disappear and before this transaction is confirmed. So now it's confirmed, which means the transaction was successful. But as you notice, there was a cancel and speed up option. So that's a very important thing that I wanted to cover. If you ever have a transaction that you try to pay, maybe you try to go slower because you want to try to save on fees, and it gets stuck for some reason, you can always cancel it. Or if it's going slow and you just decide, you know what, I guess I need to speed it up now, you can hit speed up. So you could always try to pay less and then in the future adjust that if necessary. Or in some cases, a transaction can get stuck and doesn't go through, so you need to cancel it because maybe gas prices suddenly rise drastically after you hit the send button or something, so your transaction gets stuck by other people that are jumping ahead of you into the network and making transactions. But it's been confirmed. So I should be able to come over to our second account now, and we can see if I go over back to tokens that we have the $10 in our account. So yeah, we basically are good to go now. And it looks like, you know, it rounded up just slightly here. So $10 and a penny. It's not the worst thing in the world. Now, again, anytime you do gas fees, one of the things that I forgot to mention, and I didn't really want to overcomplicate anything, but I guess I'll just mention this because, you know, this is something that's good to know. You know, when we send these transactions, as you can see, it's given us a estimated gas fee. So let's go ahead and just change that. So, oh wait, I'm in my account too. I was wondering why I didn't have $10 there for a second, because I knew I had $10 in the first account, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, so yeah, so it's an estimated gas price. So one of the things that you'll notice when you send transactions, and if you decide to go back and look at the lending and borrowing example where we were using this protocol, even when you click send in MetaMask, it's an estimated gas fee. It's usually pretty close. But if you were to look at some of the transaction that I was making in the lending and borrowing, you would see that after I hit send in MetaMask, sometimes the fees were actually less than it said. Like it would say like, oh, the fees estimated to be 13. And then I would see like really quickly it would say like it went through for like $8 in fees. Now I thought it would be too crazy to go into that, you know, in the moment. And that's why I wanted to make a separate video about gas fees so you wouldn't be overwhelmed with too many multiple concepts at the same time. But yeah, basically, you know, you might end up paying a little less or a little more than what the estimate is. But that's why, you know, your wallet has maxes on how much Gwei you would pay to prevent you from paying too much. But yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know. For the most part, it basically works the way you would expect it to, and your fees are pretty close to what you agreed upon, and it kind of all averages out to be whatever the estimate is. So you don't really need to overthink it, and you know it's nothing that I worry about personally. So just something to be aware of, and that's pretty much all there really is to using gas. So it's a pretty simple concept overall. At the end of the day, you know, we need to pay the miners in order to help facilitate this network and allow the transactions to go through. And in order for us to all basically allow us to live together on this ecosystem and share it, we need to pay transaction fees. And depending on how much of many of us are using and active at a time, the price of gas can fluctuate going up and down. And depending on what we're doing, what kind of actions we're taking on the blockchain, you know, our overall fees could be more expensive or cheaper. As we saw in the Lenin and DeFi example, it costs more in gas fees to transact in some of those actions that we were taking, whereas just simply sending between wallets is much more affordable. So I think you're really going to enjoy this next lesson. So let's head over there and I'll show you how you can save even more on fees by using other blockchains.